And this is a tri-power multi-port fuel injected intake for a oval port big block Chevy. This one has our smaller platform throttle bodies originally developed for Victory motorcycles. They work great. They're 48 millimeters in diameter bores, a 2.14 inch bore center. It's got a remote idle air control motor back here. A little rubber gasket just fits right onto the air cleaner lid when you drop that on. I'll show you that in a little bit. We've got some vacuum ports back here. One is for the map sensor in the rear manifold port here. The other is for a PCV or power brakes. Here again you've got a PCV vacuum port down here below the throttle position sensor, and then this port here is for the headlights on the Corvette that this is going in. Your throttle position sensor. I rotate it around a little bit here. Got a braided steel fuel crossover, -8 AN. So walk back around. You can see the linkage assembly. Linkage is a progressive linkage, and it's set up so that you can run it on the center throttle body. If I can pull this here. Center throttle body when you're driving around town, and then the outer throttle bodies open up when you get on it. Sorry about the shaky video here. There's adjustment here for how much the center throttle body opens up, and you can adjust that for the weight of the car. This should be a pretty good setting for the Corvette, I think. It's got a billet throttle cable bracket. There's a lot going on back here, a little stainless steel bracket that holds a throttle cable bracket to the manifold. Manifold's been ported, so we eyebrowed the manifold top and bottom to add more meat for the large ports, and then ported it out. Target's around 650 horsepower, I think, for this particular motor. What else have we got going on here? Air cleaner mounts on 3 of these studs, and the other 3 are essentially pins hold the gaskets in place. And I'll get you showing that in just a sec here. And the manifold comes completely assembled like you see here in the box, and you'll need to take the fuel rails off. So go ahead and mount it onto the motor. To do that, you'll need to first remove the idle air control motor from the housing, and that takes a 1/8 inch Allen wrench, just like this guy here. Then you just go in and spin those babies right out. Of course, doing this one-handed is kind of tricky since this is a cell phone. That just pulls right out of the housing. Drop the wrench on the floor. That gives you access with a 5/64 inch wrench. Oops, that's not the right wrench. That gives you access with a 3/16 wrench to remove these 2 mounting bolts for the bracket that holds the throttle cable in place. Just spin those guys out. Then you just take the bracket and move it towards the center if you don't want to disconnect the throttle cable. You can just pop the cable off, just a ball end like your original stock unit. Just putting a wrench in here and popping it straight off. It's easier to do with the fuel rail off. Then just take a 1/4 inch wrench and pop the bolts for the fuel rails out. Oops, sorry about that. Alright, I pull the bolts out separately. Notice they're different lengths, and there's also different length spacers underneath the fuel rail mounts. That's because the manifold is at a slant. Let's pull that spacer right out. On top, due to the carburetors needing flat float bowls, so the fuel is at an even level as compared to the car. Then you just pull the fuel rail straight up. Now you have access to all the mounting bolts. You can leave the injectors in, or you can pull them out. Just be careful not to get anything in them, and possibly put some kind of tape over them. They're all pre-lubricated with Dow 50 or 33 O-ring lubricant, so you shouldn't need to relube them. And when you reinstall the rail, make sure that you can twist the injectors after the rail is fully seated. So make sure you haven't. It's a good way to check to make sure you haven't pinched an O-ring. If they don't rotate easily, then that means you've probably pinched an O-ring on the way in, and you need to pull the fuel rail off and replace the O-ring with a new one. And here's the big block Chevy system with the air cleaner base installed. It's a hand-laid fiberglass air cleaner base. It's been coated in epoxy primer and then painted in satin black. It's held on with some nylock nuts. Prevent them vibrating off. These need to be tight when you're driving the car. Well, I know a lot of people want to show off the system when they're at a car show, so we try to make it as easy as you can to get rid of this air cleaner base to see the rest of the system. Although I kind of like the way the air cleaner base looks on this one. It's very low profile. This will fit under the hood of virtually anything. Spin these off the hand. And then this lifts straight up. Once everything's loose. Oh, and it caught on the gasket. Damn. Got these little gaskets here. They're a silicone foam with a bonded aluminized top. They're temperature resistant. They should seal up just fine and last forever. And that's the system without the air cleaner on it.